Representative Trump win. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I would just like to start off by saying apologies that Representative Nguyen and Representative Robertson could not make it. We have a supplemental budget that we're handling in the House, and it looks like it might go very, very late. So unfortunately, they're there. There's something like 96 amendments that they're dealing with, so it could go on all night. So apologies that they won't be here. Senator Feingold is on his way, so he will be coming a little bit later and joining us at that time. I'd also like to just thank very much elected officials who are here, Town Manager Richard Montuori and Town Clerk Denise Graffeo. And am I missing anyone else, elected officials? Okay, I just want to thank you so much for coming out and supporting us to learn more about the census. It's very important. You know, it was established in the U.S. Constitution, and it is something that we do every 10 years, and it was immensely important to our founders because it was central to the idea of representational government, because they were worried about a small handful of people making decisions that would affect a growing and growing and growing population, that they wanted to make sure that as the population grew, that the number of representatives representing those populations were also growing, to make sure that everyone's voice is being heard through that representational democracy. So a little bit about the census. So my boss, Representative Trom Nguyen, actually worked on the 2010 census, and it's incredibly important to her for many reasons, including that $675 billion of federal funding is up for grabs for the groups that have, the states that have the highest populations. They get more money than states with less. So that federal funding dollars, it's a bucket, and you have to decide where that money goes. So making sure that we have an accurate count, make sure that local aid is getting to the communities that have the higher populations and things like that. So local aid, local money, making sure that Massachusetts is getting its fair share of that federal funding through local aid is determined through the census. And some of the things that you'll hear from two experts that we have here today is that not only is it easier to do the census this year through phone and online census, and it's very short, it's also, it's also something that is protected with your information. So you might have got incorrect information about people trying to cause fear about your information being misused. Well, there's protections for your information to make sure that it's not misused. And you'll hear a little bit about that. So confidentiality is very important, and it's taken very seriously. So in just a couple of things in terms of local aid and the importance of that. So things like highway maintenance, Medicare, school lunch assistance, Pell Grants for college students, nutritional assistance, these are things that are influenced by the census and making sure that we have an accurate count. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Georgia Lowe, who is the partnership coordinator at the U.S. Census Bureau, who will give you more information. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you so much, and thank you to Representative Nguyen, Senator Feingold, and their teams here tonight Officials in the back, thank you for coming as well and supporting the 2020 census and the messaging that we need to get out to the communities to help us get through this huge task that we have in front of us. So thank you for having us here this evening. You all are the trusted voices in your community, so we are here to help as we move forward into 2020. The 2020 census is going to help us shape your future. So thank you for coming out tonight. We are now less than 6 months away from the 2020 census, from Census Day, which is April 1st of 2020. And a successful census is easy to define. It's counting everyone once, only once, and in the right place. So that's our overarching goal for the 2020 census. A couple of things I want to highlight here tonight that will help us get there. And these are two areas in which we need your support and help. First, we have jobs, and we need the community's help to promote these jobs. The census is a national event, but in order to be successful, it must be conducted at the local level with local workers who understand and represent their community. I can tell you that throughout this area, we'll be hiring field workers at a pay rate of $25 an hour. Not bad for a part-time temporary position. And there's some more information at the table in the back with Rose manning that table about the positions that we have available. Some information if you have questions afterwards. We've kicked off recently peak recruiting for the census, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about the jobs, the recruitment effort that we have undertaken. And we've recently designated the week of October 20 to 26, which is next week, as a 2020 Census nationwide recruiting week. We have big goals for next week. We'll be working with partners to hold informational sessions across the country to assist applicants who would like to work for the 2020 census. To give you an idea of the scope of our recruiting drive, I'm going to just throw out a few numbers. So we plan to hold 2020 recruiting events next week nationally, with a goal of adding 202,000 applicants to our applicant pool in just that 1 week alone. I don't know if you noticed what we did with the numbers there. 2020, yeah. In Massachusetts, we've already scheduled over 100 events of these recruitment events for next week, which is very exciting, and we're very excited to bring on lots of new applicants. These informational sessions will be staffed by Census Bureau employees who can answer questions about the job opportunities available and even assist people in getting started with the online application process. It is an online application. By the way, we need to recruit about 52,000 people across Massachusetts for the effort for the census, and we currently have just under 11,000 applicants in our applicant pool. So we have a long way to go in Massachusetts, and that's one thing we hope next week will help to boost up those numbers. We're up for the challenge. If anyone here would like to host a recruiting session next week, especially in locations where computers are available, such as this library, where people can come and apply on the spot, please let me know afterwards. If not, please help us spread the word that we're hiring and that we have this recruitment drive underway, so to other community leaders. Also, if you can't host a session, you can help by promoting the job opportunities on your social media, through email to your networks, or a drop-in article in your newsletter. There's plenty of opportunity. As I mentioned, we need to recruit 52,000 people in Massachusetts. So help us spread the word if you can. The website is 2020census.gov/jobs. There's a few flyers in the back with that information on it that you can grab on your way out. So jobs was the first piece that we need help with. The second piece is we need census ambassadors. We need trusted voices in every community sharing the message that the census is safe, easy, and important. So I'll talk a little bit about each of those pieces, the safe, easy, and important. We know that when people hear this message from someone they trust, it has more impact. So let me start with safe. All your responses are private and confidential on the census. Title 13 of federal law protects every piece of data that we collect. That means we cannot release any information that identifies an individual or a household, period. We can't share any personal information we collect with any federal, state, or local agencies, including law enforcement. Every Census Bureau employee, such as myself, Philip in the back, Rose in the back, takes an oath when they take the job with the Census Bureau to protect your information. And we are sworn for life to protect the confidentiality of the data we collect. Violating that oath is a federal crime with severe penalties. None of us are willing to take that chance. Our cybersecurity program meets the latest, highest standards for protecting your information as well. Since we are collecting the information online, or that's one of the options, we know that one of our top priorities is to keep people's information safe. So from the moment we collect the responses, our goal and legal obligation is to keep the data safe. So again, rest assured the census is safe. Now let me move on and talk about how easy it is. The census is easy. It's a short questionnaire. There are 4 ways to fill out your census in 2020. Online for the first time, as Tobin mentioned, as well as by phone. And for the first time, the census will be available in 12 non-English languages, both online and by phone. If you prefer to fill it out on paper, you'll have that option as well. And finally, the costliest operation that we do in the census, we will send census takers door to door to collect the same information that you could fill out online or by phone or on paper if we don't receive a response from your address. So the census is easy. And now I'm going to move on to the fact that it's important. And Tobin already spoke about this a little bit, but there is money at stake. More than $675 billion in federal funding is distributed annually based on census data. The numbers that we get in 2020 for the census will stick with us for 10 years. Funding for vital programs like highway planning and construction, Medicare Part B, Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, and the list goes on. There's many more. So resources for your community are at stake. And also think power, legislative boundaries, and congressional seats at stake. So this is why the census is so important. We can only be successful in the 2020 census with your help, with local trusted leaders working together on a strategy for their own community. Local partner organizations play a key role in raising awareness, answering questions, and encouraging their community members to participate in the census. They use their local knowledge, influence, and resources to promote the census with messaging that will resonate within your community. So your involvement is important. In closing, this is your census. We get one chance every 10 years to get it right. And we know that working together with the communities, we stand a better chance of counting everyone in the 2020 census. And we want to make sure that every community is accurately represented in the census to get those resources that you so badly need. So with your help, we can achieve the most complete and accurate census possible for your community. Thank you.
So as Georgia mentioned, it's very important and vital that we have a full count. Last time in 2010, we didn't get a full count, and the result of that was that we actually lost the 10th district, congressional district, because of that lower count than what would have been accurate. So that's why it's so important, because that's a voice that we lost in Congress for Massachusetts. And again, it is very vital that we get an accurate count also for local communities. The data is private and confidential. They just take statistics, and that is actually used by the local communities to do community outreach work. It's used by businesses to decide where they want to build new businesses, factories, things like that. It's used by the government to plan out public safety, emergency plans, things like that. So it's incredibly important. It has wide-reaching effect, and making sure that the count is accurate is incredibly important work. And again, this is something that Representative Nguyen did, and part of that work is making sure that difficult to count communities are reached out to and counted. Those kinds of populations include senior citizens, college students, immigrant communities. That's why it's so important that we have the census available in so many languages now as well for people to be able to participate. So now I'm going to turn it over to Vatsady Sivangsai, who is the person at MIRA, which is the chair of the statewide organization for the Complete Count Committee, and she is the coordinator of that, and she does that work in tandem with the Secretary of the Commonwealth's office. So please take it away. Thank you so much.
Really impressed that Tobin got my last name correctly, because usually that's what throws people off. So if you see my last name, it's Sivangsai, and the G is silent, and it's next to an X. So great work, Tobin. My name is Vatsady Sivangsai, and I'm the statewide Complete Count Coordinator working with MIRA. MIRA is the chair of the statewide Complete Count Coordinator, and we partner very closely with the Secretary of Commonwealth. We go across the state talking about how our residents can really develop a strategic outreach plan to ensure that all of our residents are counted in the 2020 census. I am going to really try to encourage everyone here to commit to count in any capacity that you can, because as Georgia mentioned, it's going to really take all of us here and our fellow residents to really make this happen for Massachusetts. I want to step back and say thank you to Rep. Nguyen and Senator Feingold and our elected officials and residents here in the library for making our convening today happen. It's quite important and an important step towards ensuring that we do get the critical mass to make this happen and ensure that our funds and representation is fairly allocated to our communities. As Georgia and Tobin mentioned, this only happens every 10 years, and it really is between March 12th and the end of August that we are counting our communities and our residents. And what that really means for Massachusetts is based on our fiscal year 2016, that's $22 billion in the federal funds. So $22 billion, if we break it up to individuals, it's about $2,400 times 10, that's $24,000 per individual for 10 years. And that's what we're really looking at here. What it really impacts, just a few numbers, is $238 million for our public schools, $75 million for child care, $535 million for children's health insurance programs, and $9.7 billion for Medicaid, in addition to all of the funding that Georgia and Tobin mentioned for infrastructure and transportation. It is about equal representation nationally, statewide, and locally. That is right after the count. There is a lot of committees that pop up to do redistricting. So there are some folks who are working on the census and are also saving the energy to do that. I don't know where I will be at. We'll see what energy I have left. But as Tovin and Jordan mentioned, partnerships are key to a fair and accurate count. In Massachusetts, there are about 5 large groups that are working together across the state. The Federal Census Bureau, the Complete Count Committees, some are local committees, some are partnerships between towns, some are regionals, Complete Count Committees like the Berkshires, Holyoke, Pioneer Valley. And we are also working with our elected officials, both federal and national, state, and local officials. There's also 2 key players within the system. The sponsors and funders. The Massachusetts Census Equity Fund is distributing their second round of fundings pretty soon. I think they're trying to aim for December, and the application process is out, and the application will close next week. So I encourage you to look up Massachusetts Census Equity Fund. It's a quick application process. There are other sponsors that are out and about here in Massachusetts, and there are local businesses, our nonprofits, our foundations, and they are pitching in on paying for mailing, paying for materials, paying for some of the coordinators' positions. So please look out into your community and see who can really contribute in that capacity. Nonprofits, advocacy, interfaith organizations, and community groups are key because you are part of the trusted voices in our communities and really understand how to outreach into our populations because you're the ones that serve our residents every single day. And so you may have initiatives that you are already planning, so we're asking that you incorporate the census into those activities and also figure out some strategic outreach program that you can partner with other organizations and elected officials so that you can build a critical mass in your neighborhoods and in your city. Our historically undercounted populations are people of color, men ages 18 through 49, low-income households, including renters, young children under the age of 5. And I want to step back here to provide a few statistics on this. Young children were one of the biggest residents that were undercounted in 2010. Over 1 million residents in the United States was undercounted, and here in Massachusetts, that's 20,000. So it's really key that we are able to message to our parents and our families and our grandparents and our services that provide key programs to our children so that they ensure that our young children are counted. Immigrants and families that are limited English proficiency and foreign-born households are also part of the perennial challenges, in addition to single female-headed households and mobile young adults. This year, in particularly, the census challenges are, in some places, broadband access or internet access because the census is the first time being digital, and there is a fear and mistrust in our communities, whether they're the immigrant communities, low-income communities, or people who receive benefits, people who have a history of mistrust in the government. One of the challenges is the underfunding of the federal government to our census program. There will be lack of public-facing census offices, and there won't be any stationary questionnaire assistance centers. So we're asking our local organizations, elected officials, and towns to really help determine where are the key places that we as a community can have these questionnaire information assistance centers. And really there are 2 types of questionnaire assistance centers. There's ones where we provide the information, and then there's one where residents can come in and use the laptops or the tablets within that center to fill out the form. Certain spaces that we already have, like the libraries and the senior centers and adult education centers and high schools and other educational facilities, are key places where those can be. We really want to message that the census is safe, it's simple, and it's really important. And so we really are relying on you here in Tewksbury as residents to help us. One of the key things that the Statewide Complete Count Committee and the Secretary of the Commonwealth have been doing across the state is supporting complete count committees. And so complete count committees are partnership organizations usually run by a municipal elected official or a municipal employee or a planning commissioner. And they partner with local businesses and organizations and faith community in order to develop a strategic plan specifically for that region. And the Secretary of Commonwealth and the Statewide Complete Count Committee has created a few materials that you can look at. One is the action steps, which I brought here. And it kind of gives a guide on what the purpose is of the Complete Count Committee, how to increase awareness and participation, really drive the local grassroots organization so that we have an equitable outcome for our community, really to insist you on developing the tools and ideas and local action steps. We really encourage the subcommittees or your committees to be representative and inclusive of the diversity of your community. So whether we're looking at racial or ethnic minorities, whether we're looking at like renters here in the community or people who are living in group quarters such as nursing homes, boarding schools, folks who may have limited access to internet, shelters, homeless, shelters or soup kitchens, and if you have any students or young adults that are frequently moving back and forth, those are very key to look at. There are a few guides for determining who is hard to count. There is the hard to count map by the Donahue Institute, and if you look on there, you can do a drop box at the very top and look at Tewksbury and see what groups were undercounted. But I think that our communities have shifted a lot, our populations have changed, so you here on the ground may have more of a better understanding what the predictive measures are for your community. So I encourage you to really get together as a complete count committee, take a look at these action steps, also look at some of the materials that we have. We are going to be hosting some webinars and workshops across the state. It will have toolkits that encompass these materials. So the materials that the libraries will be handing out, we are working with them on, are these trifolds. We'll also have like FAQs that are specifically for Massachusetts. They will be translated into the languages that are considered hard undercounted here in Massachusetts. So while the census has the 12 languages that are non-English, we will have specific language here for Massachusetts. If you know of a particular population that has not received those materials or we have not translated those materials, please reach out to us, the Statewide Complete Count Committee or the Secretary of Commonwealth's team, so that we can assist in that. I would like to really just end it here because I gave a lot of information, and I want to also give you a moment to really digest all that I have provided. But I really hope that you'll reach out to each other, reach out to us so that we can have a fair and accurate count of our communities so that our dollars are invested into the people that live here in Massachusetts. Thank you so much.
So it looks like Senator Feingold is actually stuck in traffic getting back here, so he's not going to be able to make it in time for the event here.
Maybe put more money in the highway fund. Subway doesn't quite make it here, does it?
Well, I just want to thank, though, Shannon Emmett, who is here from his office. Thank you so much for being here. She is his legislative aide. Thank you so much for being here. I'd also like to thank Diane Reamer in our office. She is our district director, very helpful with the work that we've done, including this event here in the district. So thank you so much for your work on this. Thank you so much. So now I would like to just open it up for any questions, and I would like to invite Georgia and Batsadie back up here. So if anyone has any questions for us, now is an opportunity for you. Yes.
Is there a central place like where this message exists, like as a PDF that we can access to share on Facebook or?
Sure. So we have on the census.gov, 2020census.gov is our 2020 census website, very simple. There's a lot of information on the website. It was just recently revamped, and it's pretty easy to navigate. So you can find a lot of promotional materials, flyers, and that sort of thing. But there's also messaging. So there's some toolkits available for municipalities to use or anyone to use to put out, whether it's on social media or on your town tax bills or utility bill, that sort of thing going on to the community. So yes, there's messaging available.
So for us, the Secretary of Commonwealth's census website has a lot of the information, and they will be going up onto that website. If you email me, I can also just send it to you and share the public Google file for you to download it directly. There are other resources that are available. I mentioned the Massachusetts Census Equity Fund is doing the funding, their second round. The Commonwealth is also doing a second round, distributing to nonprofits. They have about 2.5 million that will be going to nonprofits to do some of this work. So please be on the lookout on that, and all that information will be on the state's website. There's also mass counts, which you can find by just simply Googling mass counts or masscounts.com. And there are other key organizations that zooms in particularly to communities like the Latino community, the Asian community, the Black population, the kids, the LGBTQ community. So if you're looking for information like that, and you want to just get a list of it, just email me and I can give you the link to those.
What's basically the timeline? Like when is it available online and when is it going to be mailed to our homes, and when is it supposed to be turned back in? So there must be a window, right?
Yes.
That you're looking at?
Yes. So in I don't know if I should be standing up here or there.
So around mid-March is when our mailings go out from the Census Bureau to every address in our database. And there'll be several reminders. So that initial letter will contain, it's essentially an invitation to respond to the census. And it will have information about where to go online to respond to the census or to call one of these phone numbers available. Because there'll be a different phone number for English and for each of the 12 languages that are options for responding. So it will also have a unique identifier that you can put in when you go online that just really ties it back to your address, so that when we publish the data or when we tabulate the data, it's tabulated to the right place. But anyhow, so mid-March is when mailings go out. You can respond online immediately because our portal will be live at that point. You don't have to wait till April 1st. That will continue. There'll be several reminder mailings throughout the end of March and into April. By mid-April, if we haven't received a response from your address, you'll get a paper questionnaire. So some households will get a paper questionnaire right up front. If there's an area of like low internet connectivity that we're aware of, those will get paper questionnaires right up front. But for most households, that paper questionnaire will come in a fourth mailing, which is like mid-April. By mid-May, if we haven't received a response from your address, that's when the census takers will start knocking on doors to get the information face-to-face, directly from the residents of that address. That will continue through the end of July. So you can respond to the census, even online, even, right through the end of July. Is that pretty much? Yeah.
Thank you.
I have to fill out a town census almost every year. How much of that data makes it to you?
None. Independent,
So I'm
completely.
just wasting my time with the town.
Well, I mean, they serve different purposes, I guess, so.
No, it keeps you on the voter list and keeps them on the school.
Are there any more questions? All right, well, thank you so much for everyone showing up and being part of this. Please take this information back to your communities, back to people you know, to let them know how important this is. And also, if you're interested in the jobs that are available, please see Rose at the back table. I just want to take a moment to thank the state delegation for all of their support on this. Unfortunately, they weren't able to make it because of the work that was being done at the State House. But Representative Wynn, Representative Dave Robertson, and Senator Ray Feingold are all very supportive of this. The chairman, Paul Mark, is also very supportive. Unfortunately, he had a conflict and wasn't able to be here. But we had Georgia Lowe, as well as Beth Sadie, Steve on site to be here. So thank you so much for coming and helping us out with this event. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you to the town manager and town clerk as well for being here. Thank you so much. And also feel free to take some refreshments and pizza with you as well. So, thank you.